Welcome to Embedded, the show for people who love gadgets. I'll be your host this week, and I have two guests. Jen Costillo returns, which means we'll be talking about some embedded software. And Jen brings along Kyle Chan, an instructor at California College of the Arts in the fashion program. Combining embedded with fashion must mean we're going to talk about wearables today. Hi, Jen. Thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me back.
Hi, Kyle. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Could you tell us about yourself?
So I'm an adjunct professor in the fashion department at the California College of the Arts. And I also teach at the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising. I teach in fashion, product development, visual communications, and interior design sometimes, and also graphic design.
And the two of you are teaching a class together at the Design of Wearables, some sort of summer program? What's that?
It's a 2-week program where it's a series of workshops, some of which are hands-on. Those are primarily on the weekend. But during the week, it's a lot of professors and other people who have done wearables sharing their expertise in a particular area.
There's also a series of panels there where you can come in and have a panel discussion with a group of people from different disciplines.
So we have some big name companies like Samsung coming in, but also people like Switch Embassy, like Laura Grant, and I'm trying to remember the other name off the top of my head.
What is Switch Embassy?
Switch Embassy is a smart clothing or smart accessory design group that has come up with a couple of interesting items. One is a high-end handbag that can change colors over time. It's made out of leather. It really looks nice. And you can basically, just say what color you want it to be in the cutouts. So it looks really interesting.
So today I want my leather purse to be pink, and tomorrow I want it to be blue, and that's
yes.
okay with you?
Yes.
No, that's... no way.
Oh, that's not okay with you?
No, I mean, it's not real.
So it is. It is. We've seen demos of it.
We've seen actual demos of it. Yeah.
And then the same company also has. I don't remember what the name of the shirt is that they call it. Do you remember what it is, Kyle?
I don't remember. They have a women's T-shirt and a men's T-shirt as well, and it features a photonic display which you can customize. But what's really interesting about it is the fabric is actually really
flexible.
Photonic display, does this just mean the shirt is covered in LEDs?
It's covered in LEDs, which, as we already know, is horribly gaudy. But they've used their fabric technology to make it just very easy. Very washable and kind of, usually when you see like a lot of the light up shirts from the last 20 years, they're really clumsily made. There's only one or two light panels. This has like basically very seamless, like you can't discern where exactly the LED is.
Right.
And then you can use your phone to download a new picture. So you can have an animated picture on your chest of a cowboy or a Twitter.
Platypus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and you can probably, once you have that, you can start doing all sorts of things. You can tweet and have whatever your tweet is on your shirt.
Yeah.
That would get me in trouble at work.
Probably.
Well, what's interesting about it is the amount of space that it takes on the shirt itself. Because I think the older ones, they were little pieces you could attach and they were much smaller. And this takes up quite a bit of it, the front area of the shirt, at least, 2/3 to 3/4 of it.
Oh yeah, it was a pretty impressive size compared to other products.
Was it heavy?
Didn't look heavy. I didn't try it on. They didn't really let us touch it.
Yeah.
Are LEDs the new sequins? Because if so, I have some ideas.
Kyle, did you want to take that question?
No.
I believe on the trends for this coming fall, sequins didn't make it again.
Oh man.
LeMay may have made it. Did LeMay make it?
I don't know.
I think fashion trends are harder than technology trends for sure.
I think that at some point, some type of metallic trend comes in. And it can be very shiny or very matte. There might be a trend coming around. I mean, they cycle. But I don't know sequins. I'm not a fan.
If you can control the shimmer of the sequins, like, maybe just like you want like a little sequin trim or LED trim as opposed to like the whole thing.
Getting back to the subject at hand. And I recognize the whole sequin LED thing was my fault. So the California College of Arts is putting on the Design of Wearables summer series. Bunch of classes, 2 weeks, evenings and weekends. Kyle, are there any of them you're planning to attend?
No, I haven't signed up for anything yet. And I was looking at it past couple of days, and I was looking at one called Inspiring Creative Strategies for Wearables. And they have two versions, one for brand that has a brand focus and one that has a design focus. And I think I'm interested in that. I'm mainly interested in anything that, talks about new materials.
New fabrics, new threads, new metals?
Yeah.
New
I
what?
don't know.
Yeah.
There is a focus on new materials and any of those. I mean, really, I think that's an area that's going to grow. There's a lot happening there. So I'm actually quite interested in that area.
And so am I, because I feel like that's the area that's really an unknown for not only technologists, but in some ways the fashion side of the industry is, all that stuff is kept pretty secret. There's places like Clothing Plus, and I'm trying to remember the name of the other company that I found that specializes in e-textiles, but they keep, they don't tell you how that works.
Well, there's the conductive fabric, and I've played with the conductive thread a bit, but what do you e-textiles? What do you mean?
So stuff that is already integrating in the conductive properties of the that are necessary. For example, there are conductive wire.
Jen brought some stuff.
Conductive. Yeah, sorry.
What is this?
It's conductive ribbon, and it has 4 channel. Is this 4 channel? Yeah, this is 4 channel, and you can use it to attach 4 different signals.
Just like the ribbon that usually lines my Oxford collared shirts. It's like the inside where the buttons go.
Yeah, so it had maybe kind of maybe a gross grain. Yeah. Kind of maybe a little gross grain type ribbony stuff, but it just has this conductive channel on the inside.
It's the first time it's not looked like it came from the electrical world. This looks like it came from the fashion world. It's not pretty and floofy, but not a wire anymore. Even the conductive thread feels like wire.
It doesn't bend in quite the same way, because it has, depending on which one you get, there's some embedded silver in there, and over time it wears and flakes away.
You can't wash those things.
You can wash it.
Well, you can, but
it's just not every week.
Yeah.
So this one I got from Sparkfun, so it is readily available, and they have the headers, so you can crimp your own. But I know Kyle probably has some other examples of e-textiles.
I don't have any right now.
And she can't hand them to me, so it's not as cool for me.
Well, so there's so what were you gonna say, Kyle?
No, I was going to say, I mean, that is the area where I would like to go in and really order a lot of textiles and see which ones are more conducive to creating fashion. I mean, there's one thing with a ribbon, and a ribbon is actually a great way to add a particular function to textile that's already woven. But we are looking at possibly going into knitting and being able to create some knitted circuit boards and things like that. So I don't know. I think that this is the area that I would really like to delve into. And I think I'm probably going to be taking the steps to do that in the next, actually, I'm probably starting to do that right now.
Yeah. I would say that Kyle and I know some other people, we've bought heart rate monitors. And
the standard sports ones.
Yeah, the one that goes around the chest. Yeah. And we've taken the strap and we've peeled apart those straps, just trying to figure out, how this was put together. So, you'll find a little bit of this similar ribbon, but you'll also find this plastic stabilizer with some conductive something in it, just impregnated inside the plastic to enable that, to enable electrical circuits to go through. But that process is completely hidden.
Right.
We're guessing as to what's happening. In addition, there's companies that make conductive inks that you can then silk screen on the design, but it's not clear how durable they are. So if you're silk screening something on like you would, you're doing a shirt, but this time you just print a circuit and then you can affix, whatever or sew in the circuitry or the components themselves on top of this conductive area. It's interesting, but I don't know how durable it's going to be long term.
Right. And I think that is what I was getting at, is getting a hold of this type of textile, whether it's in ribbon form or actual fabric or even trims or anything like that, and really putting it to the test from a fashion perspective, like sewing it up, seeing how, if somebody can wear it, how it handles on fabric, or if it's actually, if it drapes or anything like that. And then, running it through wash tests and things like that. So, I mean,
that's really exciting. I didn't, we're going to talk about your class in just a second, and I was pretty excited to hear about that, but I'm pretty excited to hear about that it's felt like so long if you wanted to make a shirt that monitored your posture, something I've been playing with, or shoes that lit up, which kids have, but I have dance shoes that do, and those are cool, but they're so hacked together. I don't never want to show anyone what they look like. It's embarrassing. But now you have to come back in a few weeks and tell me what you found with all the materials, because now I'm super excited about it too.
I think a lot of people are starting to realize that there's this black hole of knowledge around this area, and only a select few have it. So I've noticed a lot more classes and workshops that are coming up around the e-textile area. And the one thing I did want to clarify is that Kyle alluded to is that e-textiles doesn't necessarily mean putting electronics or conductive anything inside the fabric. It can be as something as simple and mundane as something that wicks a lot better or cools the body more effectively.
Oh yeah, they have the technical cloths.
Yes,
right.
Yes. So there's a really wide range of functionalities when people talk about e-textiles, but
doesn't the E stand for electronic? No,
I think that's one of the reasons why Kyle and I wanted to work together. Because when we first started out, this was a challenge for us because we really do come from two separate worlds. I can sew, but not very well. And she doesn't really have a technical background. But what we wanted to share in this workshop was all the different things that we had to go through to make a wearable design, even if it was a costume.
Okay. So your workshop, what is it called?
Fashionably practical something.
Fusing fashion and technology.
Just because I had to look it up, it's called Fashionably Practical Cross-Disciplinary Collaboration on Wearables. Just so you guys know, in case you wonder where you're supposed to be.
I can't find the room. I can't find the name.
We've been working on this so much that we finish each other's sentences at this point.
Okay, and but it's for listeners, that's Wednesday, August 6th. It starts at 8:15 p.m. and goes to 10 p.m., right?
Yeah.
Okay. So title aside, clearly we're doing fashionably and practical. And I guess Kyle's the fashionable part and you're the practical part?
No, I think we're both practical. I think there's a misnomer.
And both fashionable.
Well, I'll try to wear pants that day, so.
I'm not going there.
Well, don't come to the workshop then.
What are you going to talk about, Kyle?
So we're talking about the importance of cross-collaboration between tech and fashion. in order to develop wearables. We'll be talking about how to understand each other's process. I mean, Jen and I definitely come from different worlds, but part of it is really kind of understanding how one works. I mean, we have our little clashes and everything, but in general, I mean, it's just a process that we go through. So we look at how I do things or how she does things, and we come together and solve a problem, really. So this workshop is going to be a little bit about, Jen's going to discuss the tech process, and I'm going to discuss the fashion process and how things work and don't work for both.
Jen, will you give us a quick, what are you going to tell them about the tech process? I mean, most people listening, I suspect, kind of know a little bit about electronics, so that process is not as a black box.
Right. I actually don't talk about it necessarily primarily as a process. I talk about it more from the point of view that within wearables and other miniaturized products, that it's really important to focus on 4 skills, these 4 disciplines, which are mechanical, software, hardware, and I actually separate out RF into its own category, just because it's pretty rarefied. And because they all have to work together harmoniously and almost simultaneously in order to make the product work in the marketplace, I really talk about what's required from those disciplines. And then I give a brief nod to the process, because the process isn't that much different than in the fashion world.
Right, the process, the design and construction, or the manufacturing process, or all of it?
I would say all of it, based on the, going through and working with Kyle, and, because she does have industry experience.
In fashion.
In fashion. I mean, Kyle, tell them
Yes.
who you worked for. Tell them who you worked for. You know how this stuff goes. So tell the audience.
I worked at Levi's, Strauss, back in the 90s, mid 90s. I've also worked in accessory design as well. But back at Levi's, we did a lot of design to production. So I managed a lot of the process from drawing to prototyping to first samples and manufacturing. So that's pretty much where my actual mass market experience comes from.
Yeah, and it's not that different in many ways from what we go through when we're creating a consumer product. So I feel like there's some parity there, and I think part of that's because we're actually, both parties are creating a physical product.
And so for the people who come who are more fashion-based, you'll be giving them an introduction to the disciplines and what they're probably going to be looking for from those disciplines.
Yeah, basically how to know when someone's pulling your leg.
You didn't mention manufacturing engineering.
I didn't, because I think of that as part of the process. I think that's something that all 4 disciplines have to deliver upon.
Okay.
But most of what we're trying to so we talk about the 2 different worlds. We propose a model for evaluating products, wearable products, and smart clothing ideas, and then we do a couple case studies. And then finally, we're going to apply the model to other people's ideas. So what we want, what we hope our audience has by the end of the class is a couple of ideas that they've evaluated in the class. They have a pretty good idea of whether it's going to work in the marketplace or not, or where the problems are going to be. And then when they go to the hands-on workshop over the weekend, they can maybe get a prototype out of it.
Well, going back to the different disciplines, Kyle, what are you hoping the technical folks who take your class come away with? What are the big challenges what are those clashes you had with Jen?
Well, in general, I think, with Jen, actually, I think most of the clashes are really, did we really have a lot of clashes, Jen?
I was waiting to hear what you were going to say. I was like, go on, I'm curious to hear.
I think Jen is more like, let's do this like this. Exactly. And I'm more like, let's try this. And maybe I don't really have an idea about where it's going to go first. And that might be something that is very typical of a fashion designer. So I like to explore lots of ideas before I get focused. And I like to come up with lots of things before I actually get focused. And so I basically, once I edit, I develop that focus. And I think with Jen, I think she's extremely focused. So I think that's sort of very typical of the two different worlds.
Well, yeah, creative versus engineering, that does sound not everybody has exactly that, but yeah, that does sound kind of common.
But I would point out that Kyle is incredibly practical. She's a very practical, from the fashion side, she's very like straightforward and logical and direct. And I think that's what, for me, it was very easy to work with Kyle on our projects, because I said, okay, this is the concept. We need to make sure that it's going to it'll work with multiple dancers and it'll be easy to take on and off. And
there's Jen specifying the product.
But
we didn't have that much time is the problem.
No, we didn't. And I'm actually sort of the kind of person that just wants to get the job done, basically. But working with Jen was actually pretty easy. I mean, we run into little problems, and I consider them sort of, roadblocks, but really more like not so much roadblocks, but more like speed bumps. But in fashion design, I think you have a large group of people that aren't as tech savvy. In fact, when I worked at Levi's, I was the tech liaison there because I had to sort of be the one that kind of translated what the designers needed to the people in IT for both problems and also buying new computers and testing out new software and things like that. So I pick up really quickly, and I can, adapt pretty well. I don't know everything, obviously, but I can put one foot in both worlds, basically. And that part, I think, is really hard to find in the fashion industry, someone who can straddle, the two sides. And
it's hard to find in any industry.
I think a lot more so in fashion. I think that there are a lot of people that sort of feel like the computer is an intrusion to a more organic way of working. So I think that's the biggest challenge there, is to get someone who thinks that way to try and, accept something that is in a wearable that will also sort of put a stop or more of a slowdown into their particular very fast-paced process.
The other thing that Kyle reminds me of this all the time is, and she said this already, is that she throws a lot of stuff. She kind of puts everything, the kitchen sink into a piece of clothing, into a design, and then you edit it. And you see this over and over again if you watch Project Runway. Sometimes you hear like they don't know how to edit themselves. They don't know how to, it's just gaudy. It's awful. Not saying that that's what Kyle is. Okay. But but I feel like in technology, we don't like throw, if it can't fit in the box, it's probably cut pretty early on.
Pretty early on, but not always. I mean, it makes it some pretty interesting product marketing
let's put
meetings.
This one thing here. I was like, oh, well, I'll just change the enclosure over here, put a big bump on the side to make way for your who's a what's it over here. Don't worry, that's just a $60,000 tooling change.
Yeah, you can't do that at the end. You do have to solidify the vision in the beginning.
Yeah. So I think that's one thing that I think kind of and we in tech, if we put everything we wanted, we'd have this big enclosure, and then at the end we'd whittle it down. Or like, okay, well, I guess I guess we need to retool and add on that additional tooling cost. It's just there's a difference in pricing, I believe, when if you do that, if you kind of like trim everything at the end.
So because there's all that ways is more the agile way of software development.
No, I think you get. I mean, if Kyle, take this one. I think you guys are pretty waterfall to me, but maybe you could elaborate on that, like about the process.
Well, I'm not really sure what you mean.
I was wondering if we were really going to throw Kyle under the bus of software development methodologies.
So Kyle, so what did you describe? Describe like how, what it's like to design a line of clothes for a season.
Ooh, okay.
Not the emotional part, just the
emotional part. Well, I cry in the corner if things don't work out, that kind of thing. No. Basically, we do a lot of research. In general, the research can be previous sales. We also research maybe what, and I should explain, I used to work in kids wear. So boys wear 8 to 20, which is your teenage or preteen.
8 to 20?
8 to 20.
That's the
sizes.
Oh.
Not ages.
There are sizes, correct. Sorry.
I'm like, they kind of still act the same, but really?
So,
matched the giraffe with the rhino.
General, I mean, when I teach, we go through basically the same process. Is we look at a lot of things. We could look at social trends. We look at history. We look at current events. We look at high-end trends. And sometimes we talk to some people from the forecasting services and look at trends that are coming up, to a year and a half, 2 years from now, and sort of kind of pull from all of those things and distill a particular kind of theme. And this theme, again, has a lot to do with how that particular customer will feel like if they're wearing, this particular collection. So from there, we go to basically technical sketches or hand-drawn sketches, which are the garments, and we add all the details, and we pull that together, through, again, we compare it back to the themes and see if it, has a particular voice. Am I losing you guys?
No, that makes sense.
Okay. So in general, from there on, those sketches go, I work with a pattern maker, and she starts creating the patterns for those garments. And this line, I mean, in one season, we would have something up to, 50 to 100 pieces. So that's a lot of pieces if you count all the different colors and all the different fabrics. So we would probably develop, 25 to 35, but in the end, we'll end up with more because of, again, changes in fabrics. So let's see, from there on.
Let me interrupt for a second. You have 50 different pieces you've designed. How many of those will end up in the marketplace?
Oh God, that's a good question. Probably about 60% or 65%.
That's not so bad. When we used to do toy lines at Leapfrog, we would have a pretty big, even at the end, we'd cut toys after they had done the initial prototypes.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. All I hear is SKUs, a million SKUs to manage. I'm like,
yeah.
That's actually correct. We think of SKUs, and at the end of the day, if we don't have enough SKUs available, then we cut things out.
So when you're designing for the marketplace, you have a fixed number of things you can release.
Yes.
And some of them have to be shirts, some of them have to be pants.
Yeah, I mean, we work.
There's that 1 year that everyone porky pigged it.
In a ratio. The ratio is like 3 tops or 3 types of tops to bottoms, depending on the industry. And women's wear might be a little bit different, but generally we sell more tops than bottoms.
Come on. Everybody's like, yeah, I know. I don't wash my jeans every time I wear them.
Exactly.
It didn't even occur to me.
It's a ratio.
Okay, so you have 50, and then you go down some due to design decisions, right. And then maybe up some due to fabric changes, fabric options.
Right.
Okay.
I feel like I just learned a lot about why there was, what does the Fox say shirts that came out just by understanding, they are looking at media trends and so forth. I'm like, okay.
Well, that's interesting because something might be in production. I mean, when we're designing, or at least at Levi's, we designed a year and a half ahead. But every so often something would come up, say we wanted to make a fox shirt, or what this is the Fox Say shirt. And we would add it in at the last minute for the season that's already being delivered. And we would probably hire people locally to run these T-shirts. And we would add it in and deliver it, in 90 days or, a couple of months.
That all sounds very familiar.
It does.
18-month product cycle, the occasional quick spin that you do at an insanely high cost and low margin just so that your name is trendy.
Right.
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's sounded really familiar. But what's funny is if I'm assuming, Kyle, that if you don't meet that window, if you don't make that, if you don't make it in time, well, you have a bunch of you might as well have released your clothes in the 70s. And
it's like Christmas and consumer products. If you don't release on time to get it in the market at the right time, you might as well not have played this year.
Well, so the difference in fashion design is we have deliveries within a season. So if it doesn't make it to the first delivery, it will go to the second delivery. However, we design different deliveries because things have to change on the floor, right?
Oh, so are deliveries like seasons?
So within the season, we might have multiple deliveries.
Oh.
But that doesn't mean that you can just throw something in afterwards, just because we didn't make production. In general, you have to deliver you have to make that deadline, basically.
Because the stores are planning on so many different kinds of shirts, so many different SKUs themselves.
Contracts have been written.
Yeah,
space has been made.
And as things sell, so you put them on the floor, and as they sell, you bring in new merchandise. So that's why there's this delivery system.
Yes. Okay, so we've been talking about wearables and fashion, but we're going to go back to wearables a bit. And my question now is, what do you mean by wearables? Isn't my outfit unadorned with any electronics wearable?
You are, in fact, wearing it.
Exactly.
And therefore, by definition, it is wearable.
But we keep saying wearables. And
but we've shortened it. We've shortened it.
Electronic wearables.
E-wearables.
E-wearables.
Okay. E-wearables.
So when you guys talk about wearables for this class, what do you mean?
I think we mean a couple things. Kyle, did you want to take this one?
Well, yeah. Wearables is sort of a catch-all phrase for things like accessories, e-textiles, things like that. Smartwatches.
Smart clothing.
Smartwatches.
Smart clothing, too, correct. And I think, most of the focus has been in accessories. But if we sort of separate smart clothing or kind of look at the subcategory of smart clothing, we look at things that are garments that have communicating and sensing capabilities. And I think that that area is probably one of the ones that people are most interested in.
So these are the body monitoring things.
Well, it could be.
Yeah, I mean that's what's compelling people to spend that type of money to buy that product, is the idea that somehow it will make you thin, smarter,
healthy,
fantastic, fabulous.
Isn't this always the goal of fashion?
I think there's utilitarian reasons, like this covers my butt, so now I can go outside and not get picked up by the cops. Except in San Francisco, where it's okay.
What? I don't know. I think the goal of fashion is that it's accepted. And there's a spectrum in that area, all the way from high fashion to sort of mass budget type fashion. So in terms of smart clothing, I think we're talking about something a little bit different because it is specialized. It is something that I think a lot of athletic wear companies are really spending the time in researching and developing. But in fashion itself, I think it's an area that is just where only a few companies are really trying it out. I think it's still an unknown. I think fashion's a little bit behind in that area.
Well, and with the Fitbits and even the posture monitors, they don't really seem to have much to do with fashion for all that they're called wearables.
I think there's some of it. So I think you and I have talked about Fitbit before in terms of that's the product you get, so you never show it off. You keep it small. You keep it unintrusive.
People wear them on their wrists
and
seem
shine.
proud
And
stuff.
shine is another example of something that looks very beautiful but
That's
unintrusive.
the necklace-based pedometer.
Or you can have it on your wrist, and it comes in different colors. I was looking last night. I was almost tempted to get their cobalt blue one. It looks Storm. It's called Storm. It was a beautiful
and there's
blue.
the new Ringly that had really quite pretty rings that would light up with different patterns depending on who was calling you, assuming you didn't have your phone in front of you.
Yeah, somehow.
Are these the sort of things that are the crossover of interest, or are there other areas of wearable and fashion and technology all getting together?
So for the most part, the history within the tech community has been accessories. If you want to look legit, you're going to make an accessory. Why? Because that's at least somewhere in your realm of control. Fabric, the technology isn't there yet to make something that's going to be durable and work with everyone's lifestyle. And accessories are something you can kind of throw on and take off.
Afterthoughts. And you can wear them as much as you want.
Yeah.
I mean, if you get
if you don't wash your
you don't.
Yeah.
You can wear it every day. But if you get a shirt, you can't.
It's unintrusive by comparison. So I think that's part of the reason why smart clothing hasn't really caught on. Now, there's a company called Athos, probably mispronouncing, out in Redwood City, that is really trying to do, I think, the first smart clothing that I think will actually make a dent. It's not fashion focused. It's fitness focused. And what it is you have the shirt and the pants, and they're very form-fitting, and they look nice. They're black. And you fit these little pods into the top and bottom, and that connects to some sensors to measure how hard your muscles are working, your breathing, your heart rate, and it then sends all that data to your phone. Now, it's not officially released, but it's a couple $100 just for a set of the clothing and the pods.
Well, and they look like the pants look like biker shorts. These are not pretty. But they do also look like, in the example they're showing on their website, he's lifting weights, and it's showing that his shoulder is in the correct position.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's compelling. Although it seems to me that if you're not making six figures, you're not going to buy one set of these, and you kind of need to buy several sets of these.
Yeah, that's the thing, is you're going to sweat in this.
Yeah, I want to wash it all the time. All the time. I'm not the sweatiest person in the world, but I still need to wash things.
Ooh, I hope that makes it for a title. I'm not the sweatiest person in the world.
I don't know. I'll wrestle you for it.
So sports is a very reasonable direction for these wearables, but they aren't very fashion. They don't scream fashion to me. Kyle, what do you think is the direction technology is headed?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question. It's such a pretty big question. Right now, a good example of fashion and tech combined is a company called couture. They're based in London, and they're actually the ones responsible for that Twitter dress. So the dress that was a haute couture dress that was commissioned for, I can't remember, was
it Katy Perry?
No, that was Nicole Scherzinger, and I'm probably mispronouncing the name. And she wore it for, I think, a London-based mobile company's inaugural or some kind of event. I can't remember it right now. So they have a website, and they feature both haute couture, one-of-a-kind pieces, and also designer-level pieces. So they have a display mini skirt, an iMini skirt, basically, that can be programmed through your iPhone, and that's the skirt that Katy Perry wore. But they also have dresses and pants there as well, and I think they're a good example of the type of photonic garments. And if you get a chance to look at it, you'll see it's pretty fashionable. It's still, dealing with very classic shapes. And in terms of the future, I mean,
Well, wait, I'm going to go to Cute Circuit for a second. They have a whole collection called Samsung, which,
Well, Samsung really wants to get into wearables.
They do.
They've been talking. Like I said, they're going to be at CCA during this festival of fashion and technology. That's not the name of this thing at all, but that's what I'm calling it for right now.
They also came last spring to do a 2-day workshop with our students in the fashion design department.
Yeah, they are very eager.
Yeah.
And Cute Circuit has a whole nother line for Mercedes. So when you're driving your car, your jacket lights up appropriately. This is awesome.
Okay. So you know what's nice is so I don't think I've ever told Elle this story. I'm sure Kyle remembers. So it's about the year 2000, and I was spending my time buying light up clothing and whatnot from a company called Cyberdog in the UK. And I was on a bunch of cybergoth boards during that time, because that's what you do. You just want to buy up all kinds of cybery type clothing. And I really wanted to design some programmable pants. And pants that would just say, you could customize it just like this. Just like what they're saying here.
Programmable pants.
Yes, I want programmable pants. I want to...
Try to hold it back.
Well, you know what? It gets funnier because the boards I was talking on were based in the UK. And when you tell somebody that you want to make programmable pants with LEDs all over them, they're like, don't you want someone to see them? Because for them, pants are knickers. Right. But I digress. I mean, that's obvious. They're like, why don't you? Maybe you should make them trousers. And I'm like, and me not being quite aware. But it's really nice to see that somebody is actually making this work, and it's still not washable worth anything.
No, it's not washable at all.
Nothing couture is.
And did you check the prices?
No. The website design alone told me how much it was going to be.
Right. Well, that iMini skirt is up at $6,300.
Sure.
Yeah. Not
Which
washable.
would I rather have.
Well, you could wear it while you're in your car.
Exactly. Okay, so Kyle, you were headed to what is the direction technology is headed? It sounded like you may have more of an answer than that, than the initial.
Well, in terms of fashion, I really think fashion isn't really there yet. I mean, I think the technology, or can you ask me that question again? Where the technology is going, meaning the tech or the actual fashion industry and technology?
What parts of technology are going to be used by the fashion industry? What's exciting to you as a designer regarding the technology that exists or is purported to soon exist?
Well, actually, I think Jen mentioned it earlier. What's exciting is anything that is conductive or has display capabilities, where the material is flexible and supple.
Flexible displays, yes.
Yeah, flexible and supple.
I've been waiting for, we're talking like 15 years now. I've been waiting for this. That's why I got into e-ink to begin with, was like waiting for this time.
There's all these books where they talk about flimsies and it's rolled up displays. And yes.
I mean, I had a business plan that was centered around a flimsy display. But I think it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better, just because I don't think enough companies are demanding that, e-textiles get more, either more cost effective or ready to go. That it's something that you can make a product that will be worthwhile making, unless you're charging a ridiculous amount for it. And then I also think that the components that we're using, sensors and what have you, and some of the manufacturing capabilities, they need to shrink down. They need to also become more cost effective. So it's
more robust, able to be washed.
Oh yeah,
right,
yeah.
I also feel like it's going to get worse as well, because I think a lot of people are going to put their money into things that are really flashy.
Sometimes literally.
You mean when you say flashy, you mean sequiny?
Program of pants.
Ugly?
And I feel like fashion, at least in terms of technology, it really needs to be sort of subtle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right?
understated.
So until that actually happens and we accept it, I think we're probably going to see a lot of flashy display type things. And, I'm not necessarily against that. I just think that, for now, things have to kind of look like they more bang for your buck, basically.
Because there are a lot of bucks involved.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, we're looking at $200, $300, $150 for a T-shirt probably.
$6,000 for a skirt.
Exactly.
Well, come on. I think there's some things like, we now have, some more EKG and other types of sensors that we could possibly be using to show emotions to people who can't read emotions very readily. There's other things that we could do in the social space with clothing and accessories that I think would be more beneficial and less about fashion, less about looking ridiculous.
Do you think anybody would wear a shirt that showed when they were lying?
Ooh.
I don't know. You know what? I think that would probably end up being an art installation sooner than it would be a day-to-day wear thing.
Well, art installation, this kind of brings up San Francisco has a lot of the technology and art merging. And Kyle, do you think that technology and fashion collide more at CCA than at other fashion institutes?
No, I don't think it necessarily collides. I think it's just not as explored as we would like it to be. I think there are a lot of people at CCA, including Christopher Ireland, who is the head of the MFA department, who is the one that put together these wearable workshops, who's really interested in bringing it more to CCA. I know that our project with Samsung involved both the fashion department and the industrial design department. So I think that it's not necessarily a collision. It's more of a kind of changing a way of thinking. And I think that everybody at CCA is actually really eager to take this on. I think the part of craft and design will lend itself really well to technology. And I think that all the departments could look at each of their areas and see how they could maybe branch out and add a technological aspect to it. I think that's actually something probably that'll be happening soon enough because there's a lot of conversations there about it.
Neat. Jen, you brought me some other things I see over there. And I wanted to ask you about the future of wearables. And I think that it's related to the sensors and what's the blue thing?
The blue thing. The blue thing is a packet of heat-sensitive dye. And what you do...
I totally had a hypercolor t-shirt in high school.
I also had a hypercolor t-shirt, which it only worked on my boobs and just everywhere else was like... But I don't know if anyone, if you grew up out here in California, then you probably never had a pair of these, but I had more than a couple of pairs of these in the Midwest, and they were called Freaky Freezies. And what you would do is they look normal. You can see the commercial on YouTube, actually. It's pretty dorky. And what you would do is you would put on these gloves, because you go outside and play in the snow. And as it got cold, an image would appear on the gloves. And yes, that was a whole lot of marketing.
Wow. That's cool. I've never heard of these.
The Freaky Freezies. We can watch the YouTube
amazing.
commercial together. Anyway, so this is kind of color chromatic dye that allow, this one's in blue. So as it gets warm, as you saw when I came in, it was all white. And I was like, oh, it must be really warm out. And what happens is as you apply heat to it, it changes color. So you can use that as a way to indicate on clothing that there's a temperature change. I also have, the reason why I bought that is because I bought a bunch of heat conductive pads that are in this very thin kind of Mylar.
Flexible matrix of little heating elements.
Yeah. And what I was going to do is I was going to make something that I was going to make heated grips or something like that for my motorcycle, but it's cheaper just to go buy them. So I was going to do like some sort of heat shirt or something.
Isn't that technology used a lot in the toy industry?
Making kids burn? Yeah, it totally is.
The heat sensitive or temperature sensitive dye.
Oh, I know. Actually,
with the babies.
I've seen it a little bit, but not much.
Where like you
paint on makeup on the babies.
Or that you apply water onto a doll and it shows up.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Not actual
hair color changes, or not.
Not actual babies. Because there was the thing. I'm sorry to cut you off, but there was I remember there was a Barbie that you would, that you would like put water on her hair and then her little pink streak would come up.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the heat sensitive dye. But with the little heaters, I want to like make a jacket that only says something when the heaters are on because it uses the heat sensitive dye. Yeah. But I can't really think of
Too hot to touch. Hot ass.
LEDs are on, and then in the front there would be LEDs.
But I mean, you do realize there are heated jackets and pants that are primarily used by motorcyclists and people living in cold regions.
Yeah, I live in California. We never have to be hot here.
If you don't want to, I guess. One of the other things that I brought, so I have some stuff that's very clearly lily pad, like vibration boards.
And lily pad is the whole system, and it's got an Arduino processor. Base. It's got some other processor bases.
There's an MP3 version of it that you could just, has an mini SD, micro SD, and you could just play MP3.
And they're designed to be sewn in. Mm-hmm. They have little holes so that you can not have to solder anything. You just use the conductive thread.
Yep.
So this is a buzzer. What else do you have over there?
So this is another one that I have, which is this little strip, and I'm really eager to get a chance to use it in something because it's just a long strip with silver and mylar and what have you, and just 2 leads coming out of it, and it's a bend sensor, so it'll tell you how much you're bending. And it's really just a series of resistors in there, and so as you bend, they kind of close off.
Yeah, force sensitive resistance sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay. And so I was thinking about making a sit-up pants so you can find out how many sit-ups you're doing.
Oh, no cheating.
No cheating.
And then you have this light sensor for the lily pad. Mm-hmm. And so you could have a light sensor that when it got dark, your jacket lit up.
And so that's what I did with Kyle in our costumes is I had, the concept was representing 2 planets. One was a red planet like Mars, and the other one was more kind of like an airy gaseous planet. So for the red planet, I put a accelerometer on it, and that would light up different types of different lights on there in different patterns, depending on how you were moving or how fast you're moving, or if you were moving it not at all. And then with the light one, if there was light or dark, it would also flash the LEDs in a different pattern.
And these were costumes for a particular event?
These were costumes for a dance piece that I was showing up in San Francisco at Cowell Theater. Wow, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Yeah, it was a little while.
It was a while ago, yeah.
And this was modern?
This was modern.
Modern dance, okay. I know there was some ballet in there too. But.
Yeah, but Kyle did an awesome job with making these costumes work for, because they were tutus, and we had to use all the regular design principles that you would expect in fashion to make sure that they work. If I have to replace a dancer or we need to add something in, that I don't have to do all these electronics over and over and over again. So,
one of the hardest parts of wearables, I think, is its battery need. I mean, we want these wearables to last all day for as long as we're wearing these outfits. But
too many LEDs does not work.
Too many LEDs doesn't work. Even buzzers will drain your batteries pretty fast.
Yeah.
Do you see anything coming that way that's going to help us?
The regenerative battery world, at least for wearables, I would really love. I mean, you can put solar
Yeah.
You could like figure out a way to do like, I know you talked to Microgen like a while ago.
I was going to say
for energy
Microgen
harvesting.
with the vibration and energy harvesting.
It would be great. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You can't put that many LEDs on this stuff and expect you to have a lot of battery life, which totally means that all those photonic sets of clothing that we were talking about are pretty much screwed. I mean, unless you want to have people have 3 or 4 C cells taped to their waist.
Oh yes, it's just the C cells that are.
I'm sorry, D cells. Are you playing with the dye?
I am totally playing with the dye.
It is.
I put it on my very warm computer, and then it's white on that side and blue on the other, and it's very amusing.
It comes in red too, I think.
I don't know what I'd do with it, because I do remember my hypercolor shirt, and I loved it when I had it because it was all trendy.
Yeah.
Well, it probably wasn't by the time I had one.
No one got like the hypercolor pants or shorts, because it would just be...
That wasn't fun.
It would just be, crotch.
Thanks.
Your crotch is warm.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So you two teamed up initially through the dance project, the costuming. And how did you decide to teach this class?
How did we decide to do? Well, people were interested in how we went about doing these costumes.
Because you managed to get into each other's worlds pretty well. I mean, it's hard to find experts in other industries who can work with technology people. And I bet it's hard somewhat for the fashion industry to figure out technology people who are patient enough to take their time.
I think the patience thing, I think Kyle's just really patient with me.
For a long time.
For a long time. I mean, we've known each other, I think, 2002? 2000, something.
So long enough to be friends before you started working together.
Yes. And also, I have a lot of appreciation for her work. I don't know if she remembers this. I hope she... Did you? You can tell me honestly if you threw this away. I sewed a bag for her one time. Like, it was supposed to...
I remember that bag.
And I gave it to you. And like, I don't think I realized that you really did teach fashion at that time. I think it was, and I gave it to you. It was like nylon. It was like kind of like a shoulder man purse type thing. And I gave it to you.
Yep.
What happened to that?
Really?
I don't know. I moved since
you
gave me that. And I remember
and I
that
left
bag.
it there.
It was really funny because, I mean, to me, it was really about the effort and the fact that, not everybody can just sit down and sew on nylon.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's not easy at all. So I totally appreciated it because, I mean, it wasn't, it wasn't the best sewn piece. And you knew that already, right?
Yes.
No, it's a shock. Oh, no.
Oh, my God.
All the thread was buckling. But
Yeah, it was.
something that hasn't happened to me when I'm trying new materials on the sewing machine. I mean, you really have to kind of play around with it and make sure that the tension is right for the particular fabric. And that fabric in and of itself is so weird. It's ripstop nylon. So it's really, really, really thin. So it might as well, act a little bit like silk. But it's also really strong. So it kind of does both things. And sewing it is not easy.
So I'm going to let her off the hook on that one. It was very diplomatic, what she said. And I think we lost the audience.
Okay, so getting back to wearables.
Yes.
What are some of the craziest wearables you've found?
You want to say what was the craziest one?
I think Jen wants to talk about fun to wear.
Fun to wear.
Do you?
What?
Well, no. Do you? Before I go into that, do you want to talk about
crazy wearables? I wouldn't necessarily call it crazy. I would call it artistic. I think Anouk Whippet's smoke dress. It's a dress she created using 3D textiles, and it's sort of an art piece and social commentary. So you wear it, and if somebody kind of encroaches upon your personal space, it lets out this sort of smoke effect, kind of makes you kind of like a ninja.
a smoky ninja?
I think that's really cool. I think it doesn't use anything that lights up. It has a particular function, whether it's a safety thing or a social commentary type of thing. I think it's really cool. But I think Jen continually wants to mention the Fundawear underwear.
And I've hit the website already, and we're not going to cover that one in detail.
Well, so I think some of that came from, there was a video game for PS2. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but the guy who made it has made several other ones that are similar to that, where you basically are making music by attacking the enemy.
The drum pants?
No, not the drum pants, but I think that is also pretty awesome. Okay, so anyway, so in the video game, they had this add-on where you could just buy the base underwear for your associate, I guess, and then whenever you hit the bass on the beat, because it was very techno-y, this will all be in the show notes, guys. You would get a little pulse, but that's not that was a while ago. But now there's drum pants, and you can buy drum pants now. And that's where you can like slap your leg, and you can put these sensors wherever you want in your clothing, and it'll make a drum set. So it's MIDI compatible. So it doesn't even have to be a drum if you don't want it to be. And you could be your one-man band. Like you can go up and do a comedy routine, and then when the jokes hit, you could hit like a hi-hat or a drum roll, and then everyone will understand that that's where the funny was, in case they missed it. Only in San Francisco.
Right.
Only in San Francisco.
Are the speakers part of the drum pants?
I think it comes out of your phone.
Okay. What I thought you were going to use.
What did you? Just after.
Yeah. But we really haven't talked about games at all.
No, but there's the Necomimi ears.
Oh, right. Those are the ones
from Neurosky.
And they go on your head like a headband.
Mm-hmm. With a lot of batteries.
And the ears supposedly are controllable by your emotions and thoughts.
And brain pattern.
Supposedly,
yeah.
And they're little tiny motors, and they wiggle back and forth.
Yes.
Those were ridiculous.
Yes,
but game-based?
Well, the sensors have been put into other products that allow you to exercise your mind to control like balls through a obstacle course. So they're really using the brain waves as a way, as something you control in order to strengthen yourself or to focus.
And usually there's a certain, I don't remember what the name is for the type of brain waves that are used.
Is it ECG?
It was like alpha waves or something. Can't remember. I don't know. Sounds like something that would cause a superhero, but
I feel like the Jejun Institute has just come into play here.
But they're also supposed to be very good for meditation, because those are the ones that come out with meditation and supposed to be good to help you focus.
Yeah. I feel as if with the Necomimi, that if they figured out a way to make this technology not as ridiculous and geared towards the anime geek inside of us, something that you could wear to a boardroom, I feel like this is the type of thing that would be beneficial for Asperger's or other socially awkward people to understand emotions or to be able to express emotions more effectively.
It's an interesting application that probably wasn't something they were thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose like if you wanted to go into a boardroom, you could instead of the cat ears, they have
devil horns.
They do have devil horns. You can buy the devil horns, and I guess that is more appropriate for business.
Well, this goes back to my T-shirt that tells when you're lying, and so you can tell people.
And then you hack the shirt,
and then you hack the shirt and lie to them.
I feel like the days of Shadowrun are upon us.
Kyle, you were asking about games, and we got onto Necomimi, which isn't quite a game. Are there game-related wearables?
Not that I know of. I mean, I think
laser tag.
Oh well, there is laser tag. So, I'm not really that familiar with this area. I know that, I don't know if we can really talk about this, because when Samsung was here, was at CCA at the workshop, one of our students came up with this great idea, which was to equip children's wear or children's clothing with some type of a kind of a game thing, like laser tag, but it was a little bit more, more of a mobile thing. So if you could play around and dance with them or do mimicking, that kind of thing, as a game. So, I think there are areas where smart clothing could benefit by maybe going into gameplay or something like that.
I have an idea. And anyone who wants, so didn't you do like the leapfrog frog that has like the alphabet or something on the belly of the thing? Yes. What if you made it so it's just on the kid on his shirt and he just presses the buttons on the shirt and there's like maybe a tiny speaker or something like that?
That would be very, very possible.
And like you just get new modules and download them in.
Well, a lot of those already come with cartridges.
Yes, but the shirt.
Yeah, you could rip that little guy apart and put it in yourself.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm waiting for is some kind of a clothing that will mimic or will sense my Dance Dance Revolution moves.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I would like that.
I would be all over it.
or a shirt or an overshirt that could be used for like the yoga programs.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But now we're back to health and fitness, and that's probably what that super expensive
Athos stuff is going.
Athos stuff
There's a lot of people that are really trying to move beyond the pedometer and go into how effectively you're doing the exercises.
But they're expensive.
They're expensive, and I am not convinced that they're going to do well. But fitness and health are the biggest. Those are the biggest areas. After that, it is the entertainment and social. But things like photonic, not as popular. I'm trying to think what some of the other areas were, but yeah, those are the areas that we expect the most growth, and they're kind of behind like the extra functional like smartwatches and Google Glass. Those aren't necessarily doing as well.
Yeah.
From
and
the industry perspective.
Remember that fashion also hits those industries. The medical side, because a lot of the things that they do develop in that area are things that are wearable, as in actually worn. Arm braces, leg braces, all those things are actually related to fashion in some way, more on the utilitarian side. So I think that that's another area that fashion can also go into in the more sort of high function, specialized areas that relate to uniforms and
military.
Medical.
Yeah.
Military.
Actually, that reminds me that there's the Reebok Head Check, which was a product that really blew me away in terms of actively looking at, particularly for people who are in impact sports like football. If you get hit hard enough, there's this little thing that you wear in a beanie under your helmet, and if you get hit, you just grab the person and you look at the back of their head and it'll have a red or green light on it. So if you've gotten hit hard enough or frequently enough, it'll just say, it'll give a red light and you're done.
That's the Reebok Checklight.
Yeah. And that, I think there was a teardown of that on Adafruit's Wearable Wednesdays. And it was good. I feel like there needs to be more things like that. There's also the Scully helmet, which is basically Google Glass, but for your motorcycle helmet. I'm intrigued by it because I always have problems looking around me, and it would make me feel better. But my partner is really against it. He does not like it at all.
Oh. There is also that accessory, that helmet that kind of pops up. It looks like a scarf. And it's like a fashion item, and you can wear it anywhere. It does not look like a helmet, so it's basically completely hidden. And actually, that is a great way of looking at something that looks fashionable. It doesn't look like what it is, and you can wear it while you're riding a motorcycle. And the moment there's an impact, it sort of acts kind of like a car.
Balloon.
Airbag.
Yeah.
They call it the airbag for cyclists.
Yeah,
It's from
exactly.
Hövding.
Exactly.
People. There are lots of videos of that.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Yeah,
and I think that achieves that seamlessness of looking like a fashion item that nobody can tell what it is, and has an extreme function.
So what you're telling me is that LEDs are kind of like sequins, and that's not where we want to go with fashion.
So this week, I'm always trying to like get as much information about where the industry is going. So I listened to some company's webinar on where wearables are going, and they said not just once, but multiple occasions that fashion is horribly behind and embarrassingly so. And so that's what's making me really excited about taking part in this series of workshops, is just in some way helping to get fashion out of this funk. Because I think tech is really trying a bunch of ideas. They're just throwing any old thing up there. But in order for it to truly be adopted and be reasonable, you need fashion. And I think fashion is too long. Just really, there's like, well, I'll just put some LEDs on it and we're done.
I completely agree with what Jen says.
And I think that's a good place for us to probably wrap up the show. Thank you both for being on. It was great to talk to you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
And my guests have been Kyle Chan and Jen Costillo. Remember, Kyle may have designed those pants you've been wearing since college. And the two of them will be giving a class at the California College of the Arts Design of Wearables Summer Series. The session is called Fashionably Practical, Cross-Disciplinary Collaboration on Wearables. Tickets are still available, and it will be going on for 2 weeks, starting real soon. If you'll be in San Francisco on Wednesday, August 6th, 2014, please do check out what Jen and Kyle are putting on. And I'd really appreciate them both for coming on. I'd also like to thank Christopher White for producing, and of course you for listening. I had many choices for final thoughts of fashion, but it's hard to get fashion and technology together. So let's hear from what Coco Chanel has to say about this. Fashion is not something that exists in dresses only. Fashion is in the sky, in the street. Fashion has to do with ideas, the way we live, what is happening.